It started as an ordinary spring day for Sean Funk. A heavy equipment operator for Suncor, Canada's largest energy company, Sean was no stranger to hard work. His job at the Millennium Mine, part of the Athabasca oil sands project in eastern Alberta, required strength, endurance, and a keen eye for detail. The work was grueling, but Sean didn't mind. Business was booming, the pay was good, and he took pride in contributing to one of the world's most significant energy projects. The Athabasca oil sands are vast deposits of bitumen, a thick, viscous form of crude oil formed from the remnants of ancient marine plants and creatures that lived and died hundreds of millions of years ago. About 70% of the world's oil sands are found in northern Alberta, and the Athabasca site is the largest of them all. For centuries, bitumen was used as a waterproofing agent or to create materials like asphalt. But it wasn't until the 2000s that advances in technology made refining it profitable. This sparked a boom in the region, drawing workers like Sean to the town of Fort McMurray in search of opportunity. Sean's job was to operate an excavator, digging through layers of dirt, rock, and sand to uncover the valuable bitumen below. It was monotonous work, but Sean found satisfaction in the rhythm of it. Every day he carved through the earth, one bucketful at a time. But on this particular day, the monotony was about to be shattered. It was mid-afternoon when Sean's excavator bucket struck something hard, much harder than the usual rock or sand. He stopped digging and lifted the bucket, emptying its contents beside the pit. What spilled out wasn't the usual mix of debris. Instead, there were large, lumpy fragments with a strange, walnut-like color. Sean frowned. In his 12 years of operating heavy machinery, he'd seen plenty of rocks, petrified wood, and even the occasional fossilized tree stump. But this was different. Something about the fragments tugged at his curiosity. He shut off the excavator and climbed down to take a closer look. The lumps were heavy and oddly textured, unlike anything he'd encountered before. He debated whether to keep working or to investigate further. In the end, curiosity won out. He pulled out his radio and called his supervisor, Mike Grattan. "Mike, you've got to see this," Sean said, his voice tinged with excitement. "I think I've found something weird." Mike arrived a few minutes later, his brow furrowed as he crouched beside the strange lumps. "What the heck is this?" he muttered, running a hand over the rough surface. The two men exchanged puzzled glances. Neither had seen anything like it before. Then Sean reached out and flipped one of the lumps over. Both men froze. The underside was patterned with rows of light brown discs, separated by gray stone. It looked almost organic. Sean's mind raced. Could this be a fossil? But it was unlike any fossil he'd ever seen. "We gotta get this checked out," Mike said, his tone serious. "This isn't normal." Word of the discovery quickly reached Suncor's higher-ups, who decided to call in experts. The Royal Tyrrell Museum of Paleontology in Drumheller, located 420 miles from the site, was contacted. Within hours, Dr. Donald Henderson, the museum's dinosaur curator, and veteran technician Darren Tonke were on their way to the mine. Suncor even provided a private jet to expedite their arrival. When Henderson and Tonke arrived, they were as intrigued as Sean and Mike had been. The lumps were carefully examined, and the experts quickly determined that they were likely part of a dinosaur fossil. But to be sure, they needed to extract the entire remains, a task that would require precision, patience, and a lot of heavy machinery. With the help of Suncor's excavators, Henderson and Tanka began the painstaking process of chipping away at the surrounding rock. They worked in 12-hour shifts, carefully separating the fossil from the earth. Slowly but surely, the shape of the creature began to emerge. It was massive, a hulking block of stone weighing over 15,000 pounds. But the hardest part was yet to come, lifting the fossil out of the ground. The team dug 2 tunnels beneath the block and placed wooden beams inside to support it. Slings were attached to the beams, and a crane was brought in to lift the structure. But as the machine powered up, disaster struck. The beams split, and the rock collapsed under its own weight. The team watched in dismay as their hard work seemed to crumble before their eyes. Despite the setback, the team refused to give up. They carefully covered the remaining pieces in plaster and burlap to protect them, then loaded the fragments onto a truck for transport to the Royal Tyrrell Museum. There, the real work would begin. Separating a fossil from its surrounding rock is a task that requires the skill and patience of a sculptor. Mark Mitchell, one of the museum's fossil preparators, spent 5 years and over 7,000 hours meticulously chipping away at the rock. "You almost have to fight for every millimeter," he said, describing the process. But when the final layer of stone was removed, the results were breathtaking. Sean's discovery wasn't just any dinosaur fossil, it was an exceptionally well-preserved Ankylosaur, a heavily armored herbivore that roamed the Earth during the Cretaceous period. What made this fossil extraordinary wasn't just its size or completeness, but the fact that it still retained its scales, armor, and even patches of skin. "We don't just have a skeleton," said Caleb Brown, a museum researcher. "We have a dinosaur as it would have been." Paleontologists believe the Ankylosaur lived in a warm, humid Alberta that was vastly different from the region's modern landscape. During the Cretaceous period, Alberta was partially submerged under a shallow sea, with rivers and floodplains dominating the terrain. They speculate that the Ankylosaur was swept away by a flooding river, carried out to sea, and eventually sank to the ocean floor. There, it was buried in mineral-rich mud, which slowly replaced its bones and soft tissue, preserving it in stunning detail. The discovery was a scientific breakthrough, offering unprecedented insights into the anatomy and biology of ankylosaurs, but it was also a source of pride for Sean and the Suncor team. Their work had uncovered a piece of history that had lain hidden for billions of years. The fossil became the centerpiece of an exhibition at the Royal Tyrrell Museum, showcasing discoveries from Alberta's industrial sites. For Sean, the experience was life-changing. "I never expected to find something like this," he said. "It makes you realize how much history is buried beneath our feet." Doug Lacey, the mine's project manager, echoed Sean's sentiment. "You'll see a lot of Suncor people down here," he said, gesturing to the museum exhibit. "I know I will. Hopefully I'll get a backstage pass for the kids now that I know a few of the fellas." The Ankylosaur fossil is more than just a scientific marvel. It's a testament to the unexpected connections between industry and history, and a reminder that even in the most unlikely places, the past can come to life in extraordinary ways.